So I'm going to give you a kind of a whirlwind tour of what a virtual human is, some of the applications we've used virtual humans in. And then I'm going to talk very quickly about some of the expressive capabilities we incorporate into virtual humans. Now, so what is a virtual human? Basically, these are autonomous characters that can have meaningful interactions, face-to-face interactions with people. So these are entities that can reason about the environment, reason about what the behavior of the human is that they're interacting with, and respond appropriately. They can, we give them capacity to computationally model emotion, so they have emotional reactions to the events as they unfold. They communicate through speech and gesture, so unlike a standard kind of game character, we have to worry about natural language capabilities, understanding language, and responding in language. And they've been used in a variety of applications, playing the role of teachers, peers, and competitors. So let me give you just a quick video showing one example virtual human application. This application was designed to really explore the question of, in a virtual human interaction with a human, can we detect behavioral signs of things like depression and post-traumatic stress? So this is really a research platform to really look at this question. And so the virtual human's goal is essentially to draw out the human in this interaction. So let me play it. And obviously the human is on the left and the virtual human is on the right, but the actual setup, they would be facing each other, but for the purposes of this video, they're side by side.
Hi, I'm Ellie. Thanks for coming in today. I was created to talk to people in a safe and secure environment. I'm not a therapist, but I'm here to learn about people and would love to learn about you. I'll ask a few questions to get us started. And please feel free to tell me anything. Your answers are totally confidential. Are you okay with this?
Yes.
So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
That's good. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Los Angeles.
Oh, I'm from LA myself. When was the last time you felt really happy?
When was the last time? I'm not someone who's really like, I don't have any real highs.
So I'm going to stop it there because we don't have a lot of time. But basically, as you saw, what's happening there is we are tracking not only what the human is saying, but we're tracking what where their gaze is going, what their head movement is, what their posture is. We're basically tracking all that information. It's input to the virtual human as to how the virtual human should respond. So what kind of, I apologize for the fonts. For some reason, this projector doesn't like my fonts. But so let me just go through some of the range of applications that these virtual human technology is used for. One of the interesting areas is entertainment. So this is a system called Gunslinger, and basically you go into a Wild West bar and engage all these characters from the Old West, and even to the point of getting into a gunfight with one of the bad guys. So,
with computer vision and natural language understanding.
Where are you from?
Kentucky. I'm over here to get my career started.
The characters can track who is being spoken to.
How about you? Where are you from?
I moved here from Gatlin, Tennessee many, many years ago.
This sophisticated natural language system lets the characters be interrupted.
Shut the hell up right now.
You shut the hell up.
You quiet, you idiot.
So I'll stop there. It's, by the way, if you want to see any of these videos in full, please talk to me afterwards. Some of them quite fun. So that's one possible area of application, essentially entertainment. Another interesting area is medical adherence. Basically, there's been a wide range of the application of this kind of virtual character technology for certain kinds of basically informing people about medical issues. This particular application is something developed by Tim Bickmore here at Northeastern, a medical adherence application. Another interesting application area is really just using virtual humans as stimuli for psychological experiments. This has been going on now for probably 5 to 10 years, but it's really started to blossom over the last couple of years. And people are looking at virtual humans. I'm doing too much stuff extemporaneously, I noticed, so I'll probably run out of time. People have been using virtual humans, originally using them because people were interested in studying what it was like to be in VR and seeing the immersion in VR as an interesting psychological study in itself. But increasingly, people are just saying, hey, people respond to virtual humans like the way they respond to humans, so perhaps we can use them as very controlled stimuli in psychological experiments. Another interesting area is science education. Basically, in several groups, both Tim Bickmore here at Northeastern and people at USC have been putting virtual humans in museums as part of an educational outreach. Another area is, interesting enough, is cultural fluency, teaching people, for instance, in this application, how to engage in a cross-cultural negotiation. And finally, especially given the comments early this morning, one of the very interesting areas is the use of virtual humans as virtual patients to train doctors and to teach doctors better social skills. So this is a system called Robin that I've been working on with a company in Wisconsin, and she's basically plays the role of a virtual patient who's just been told that she's had a serious disease. And the doctor has to figure out how to actually break this sort of bad news to her.
Leukemia? Oh my God. Damn it.
Okay. So that gives you a sense of some of the applications. So how do we actually build these artifacts? And the reality is that there's there's many different areas of research and technology that go into creating these things. First off, you have to perceive the environment that the virtual human is sharing with the human, including perceiving what behaviors the human is doing, and understanding them as social cues. And so that's the first step, really, sort of sensing what the human is doing. Developing an understanding of that, and then having some embedded intelligence in this virtual human that basically decides, well, how am I going to react to this? Given the virtual human's task for the interaction, its goals for the interaction, how should it react moment to moment in this unfolding dialogue? In particular, we build a lot of interesting capacities into these virtual humans. We actually give them a computational model of emotion so that they can emotionally react, and these can influence things like their decision making. We give them the capacity to form beliefs about other people. We give them a theory of mind so they can understand sort of the mental state, the beliefs and goals of the human they're interacting with. And finally, we give them a dialogue capacity. And then all of this has to play out into some sort of behavior of the virtual human in this unfolding interaction. Now, my group's focus, this is obviously, in terms of computer science, this is obviously involves many different sub-areas of computer science to build all this kind of research and technology. The particular focus of my group is really in 3 areas, I would argue. One is that we work on computational models of emotion, particularly trying to model both what causes emotional states and what are the cognitive and behavioral consequences of emotion. And then the big focus over the last couple of years is how do we validate the dynamics of these models against human behavior? Do they match what happens in human beings? Because in some sense, I'm a computer scientist, but I'm sort of half a psychologist. I really do want to build models that reflect what's going on in people. Because I basically see computational models as a window on me understanding how people behave. The other area that my group is very interested in is in basically modeling cognition, in particular this notion of theory of mind that I mentioned earlier. Finally, the final area that I focus on is really essentially the expressive behavior, the nonverbal behavior, the various physical behaviors people exhibit in face-to-face interaction while they're speaking and listening and interacting face-to-face with another person. And this is what I'm going to talk a little bit about because this nonverbal behavior totally fascinates me, and for short talk, I think it's particularly interesting. Assuming this is going to end up being a short talk. So what do I mean by nonverbal behavior? I mean the various gestures, head movements, gaze, facial actions that people engage in when they're in a face-to-face interaction. And so we saw some of that earlier with this character on the right, basically, those various kinds of behaviors she's exhibiting moment to moment. Now, why are we interested in this? We're interested in this because we've known for several millennia, going back to people like Aristotle, that nonverbal behavior has a powerful influence on people, that it impacts a number of social variables like trust, rapport, liking, and really, so to get a powerful interaction between a human and a virtual human, we really need to figure out what's the appropriate nonverbal behavior of these characters. And interestingly enough, and it goes back to using these things as psychological stimuli, people have also begun to find that, in fact, these nonverbal behaviors in virtual humans have similar, in square quotes, similar effects in interactions with humans. And that's a long story, but I won't get into too much. Okay, so when you think about nonverbal behavior, all these things like gaze and facial expressions, what you realize that in face-to-face interaction with another person, it really is through our bodies. We think where our brains are connecting directly to each other, but really it's through our bodies. That moment to moment, our vocal cords are vibrating, and we're picking up information from the vibration of the vocal cords. We're seeing all these gestures, these facial expressions. There's this enormously wide channel of information that's flowing between two participants in a face-to-face interaction. And one of the things driving this wide channel is, in fact, there's a very wide channel going on between our mental processes and what our behaviors are moment to moment. That, for instance, we have specific communicative intents that are conveyed 2 minutes. Interesting. I always run over. We have all these things like intentions to communicate certain things, which are reflected in things like using beat gestures to emphasize things, or eyebrow lifts to emphasize things. We're also using our nonverbal behavior to regulate the interaction. Who gets the dialogue turn? How do I hold on to my dialogue turn? There's also this leakage of mental states, like emotions, that's constantly flowing out through our body, which is influencing the interaction. And the story I just told is actually a gross simplification, because reality is all these things go back the other way. What's happening in our body is influencing what's happening in the other person's body, is influencing my body through mirroring behavior. What's happening in my body is influencing my mental states. So there's a very complex phenomenon going on here, and the question is, can we model it? And we want to model it if we want to create powerful, easy-to-create virtual humans. So I'm going to quickly show an example of an interaction which I think is fascinating. This is an interaction between a clinician in a role play. She's in a role play with an actress who's pretending to suffer from PTSD and depression. And this clinician is basically having a conversation with the client about the fact that the husband is very upset with her behavior when she comes home.
My husband wants to be warm and fuzzy, maybe better to the girls, and it feels like you and him both feel a little bit like you're a little bit distant compared to maybe how you used to be in the past. Mm-hmm. Is there anything then, besides what he wants, anything that you want to work on, anything that you feel like we could use this time?
Now, so one of the things that's going on here is she's using a lot of metaphoric gestures. These are gestures that are grounded in certain kinds of physical analogies. So abstract ideas like a conversational topic can become an object in gesture space. And it can be very important, or you can even discard it, but once it has these physical properties, as you put it into gesture space, you can manipulate it in certain kinds of ways. So for example, when she talks about what are all the various topics that they can talk about, notice what she does with her arms and her head.
Is there anything that...
So there's anything. She's accentuating the fact that she's open to talk about anything, and she's sweeping the space, showing that there's all these topics that they could talk about. And her head even sweeps as if she's looking at these topics as she's spreading them out in physical space. But she's not willing to talk about everything. See what she does about the topic of the husband's complaints.
Decides what he wants.
She throws the husband out of the conversation because she really wants this to be about the client and her and not about the husband's complaints. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's other things going on here. There's gaze aversions associated with cognitive load. There's eyebrow lifts associated with emphasizing points. And really, there's this whole kind of rich nonverbal choreography that's going on. And it really underscores this rich relationship between the mind and the body. So to model these kinds of phenomena, what do? We actually have to build a computational model of how these various things like dialogue regulation and emotions are reflected in certain kinds of behaviors. How do metaphors, use of metaphors and language relate to the use of metaphoric gestures? How do emotion and cognitive load reflected in nonverbal behavior, etc.? How rhetorical structure like this versus that are actually conveyed through gestures. That kind of information, we need a model that actually maps it, and that's the kind of work we do. And we do it in many different ways, but the two key ways is we use analysis, we use data collection and machine learning techniques. We also do manual analysis, data collection, and doing just manual analysis to try to figure these things out. But there's one problem of doing this, and if you stop there, if you just built that model of the relationship between mental states and behavior, you're going to run into a problem because we're not yet there in terms of getting the virtual humans. I'm running out of time. I'm sorry. I'll do two more slides. Okay. If we stop there, we'd have a problem because, in fact, the mental life of our virtual humans is not yet, and probably never will be, as rich as the mental life as a human being. And if we were just mapping that mental life of the virtual human to behavior, the behavior would be very minimal. So what we do is we also cheat. We build the capacity to analyze audio and text of the utterance that the virtual human is going to speak, to derive things like emotional state and rhetorical structure. So we're actually doing an additional analysis of what they're going to, actual surface text and audio that they're going to speak to sort of flesh out the mental states. And let me just stop and end here on this one. This is basically showing that automatic generation nonverbal behavior, basically all the behavior of this character is being generated just by this system of analyzing the audio and the text of the utterance. And that is just creating the whole performance. And you'll notice it's from an audio clip from Jennifer Aniston.
No, this is not about, you're not getting it. You're not getting this, Gary. Okay, it's not about the lemons, it's not about the flowers, it's not about the dishes. It's just, how many times do I have to drop hints about the ballet?
Okay. So that opens up a whole nother opportunity for this kind of technology, and it really is rapid content creation for a wide variety of applications. I'm just going to quickly go through my other slides and just say, okay, so what we're doing in computer science is we're really trying to create facsimiles of people. They're imperfect currently, but they're already highly useful in a large number of contexts that I just mentioned. And frankly, some of the technology we're building is useful in other kinds of contexts as well, as like that audio processing I just showed. And I apologize for running over. I'm hopeless in this regard. Okay, thank you.